Welcome to Marianas Press, and I'm Mark Rabago with Joe Ayuyu, owner, operator, and president of McDonald's of Guam and Saipan. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a chance to talk to you and maybe talk about my business and probably what's happening on the island of Saipan and throughout the Marianas.
I'm sure. Interesting stories coming from you. So, some of the questions I sent, and here's the first one. So, how's everything at McDonald's Guam and Saipan, and how are your restaurants tackling the current economic situation, especially here on Saipan?
Yeah. First, I just want to apologize to our audience that I just got out of flu. And so if you cannot hear me clearly, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully within the next couple of days, I'll be back to normal. But overall, the business is doing okay. As you know, the economy in Guam, where we have 6 stores, and the economy in Saipan, where we have 2 stores, is still struggling, more so on the island in the Marianas, in the CNMI. Guam, they're making some incremental improvement in terms of visitors to the islands, but they still have a long ways to go. Guam is in a better position economically because you have the military. And the military, as you know, they are pretty steady spenders in terms of spending money for infrastructure, personnel. They're more steady, and so that money is coming into Guam on a regular basis. The difference here in the CNMI is we don't have that. And we're solely dependent pretty much on tourism. And as you know, tourism is in really bad situation here. Just a couple of days ago, I heard that the direct flights from Hong Kong will be discontinued. And so, you know, it may sound doom and gloom for the CNMI, but to me, I look at this period as an opportunity for the CNMI to take a look at how the government is doing in terms of running the government more efficient and be a little bit more creative on how to attract investors to the CNMI so that they can start generating more business here in the CNMI and improve the economy. You know, I just came from a meeting, and a lot of my conversation with a group of people is the state of the economy. A lot of the issues that we have on the economy in the CNMI is really driven by indecisiveness on the part of our leaders. It's a big problem, and I'll give you an example in the Marianas. There's one company from Singapore and tied into international. These representatives have been here for several months, and he couldn't get anywhere to get the projects approved. You know, but finally, at the very last moment, it's approved. So, the question is, here's a company coming in and wants to do business. Why aren't we taking the leadership to say, you're welcome, do what you have to do, and of course, we always have to be worried about the legality, right? But most people that are doing business or companies, they don't have bad intention. They want to come in, open a business, make money, and hopefully the economy will also improve at the same time. But we gotta help these guys, not to give them a runaround. And that's been a pattern like since I started business on our island. You know, we tend to take to take the position that maybe we're on tourism, right? That maybe we're the only place that everybody loves to go to. But you know, Mark, we have a lot of competition. So if somebody is knocking on the island to come in to do business, and it's needed here, and will improve the economy, let's welcome them. Not give them a runaround. And so that's the key on the decision making, is we gotta have the leaders decide and encourage people rather than giving the people a runaround. Pretty soon these guys are gonna pack up and go. And for those that are running business locally, you know, in my 30 years, I hardly see a leader coming in and say, Mr. Zuzu, thank you. You know, it's kind of like very disheartening. And I think we should be proud with local businesses, and we should encourage them, that we know that it's difficult times, but you know, we want to wish you luck and let me know what we can do to help you. But you know, I mean, I understand now, Mark, that when you want to open a business, you have to follow the law, and that's okay. But don't let the applicants wait unnecessarily, because, you know, as you know, time is money. And some people borrow money to start a business. And if the government procrastinates in decision making, then they're gonna give up and gonna say, I'm gonna go someplace else. So there's a lot of opportunities. I think the governor needs to lead the island in terms of making sure that the place is business friendly, and those departments that are taking more time than necessary to review and perhaps reject or approve, that those things are done on a timely basis and not, you know, give the potential businessman the runaround. And I don't know what to say, but we have that habit. And, you know, I guess I like to use an example that we're not the only prettiest girl in town. There's a lot of other places where you can go. So let's get out of that mentality. And if we really truly want business people to come here, let's look at it. If it's good for the island, let's go 100% and support them. Of course, the bottom line, Mark, is every business has to follow the law. But the law is there to make sure that, you know, fairness in business is there. And that's good. I like that. But just to give people a runaround, not good. Mm-hmm. You know. So for me, I appreciate if you say yes or no, so at least I know where I stand. No, so I just hope that the government, I think the governor probably understands that, but a lot of the government departments needs to be reminded that we have an urgent job to do, and that is to grow the economy and stop fooling around. Let's make decision. If it's yes, let's do it. Let's say yes, and if it's no, then it's no.
Yeah.
You know.
Bring out the welcome mat for investors.
That's it. But if you say come to the CNMI and then give that person 3 months running around, you know, it's very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. You alluded to Guam getting help from the military. Is there a way that the CNMI can duplicate that?
Yeah, you know, in my short time when I was at CPA, I think we have pretty much the same mindset with Governor Arno. I'm always encouraging that let's create what they call reliable tenant in our economy. They call it the anchor tenant. So in business, anchor tenant, you know, may pay a little, but they're there in good times and bad times. They're very dependable. So a good example is the bank. Mm-hmm. Good, bad times, they're there. The other kind of tenant is the one that move in and out. So what we really need is an anchor tenant that we can depend in terms of revenue, that they'll be there in good times or bad times. So the military, to me, is a good idea to invite them to the CNMI to spend, to have more presence and spend, hopefully spend more money here. And that will turn around and benefit the islands. Now, I do know and respect those that are not too keen on inviting military. But I'll tell you, Mark, the military of before World War II, and the military today are very different. The military today, they're more conscious about, for example, environment. So nowadays, if they do a major project, they have to do environmental study. Before World War II, they don't do that. They just take the bulldozer and bulldoze everything. So we need to be, we need to have an open mind on the military, because if they have more presence here, then it will help us achieve our goal of having them as an anchor tenant. Again, I just want to clarify that for the military in Hawaii and in Guam, Guam will be basically the same as what we're in right now.
Okay. Talking about what we are in right now, as a long-time businessman here in the CNMI, have you seen an era like this where large and small businesses seem to be shutting down?
No, I think this is probably the worst that I've seen. And really, now is the time for businesses to, look at their operations and try to run an efficient business. Because if you don't, then your time is really, short, and maybe it's just a matter of time before you close down. And I know the marketplace is very small, and everybody's kind of like competing for the limited customers. But again, the customers are very smart people. When times are tough, they go to places to spend where they think they can save money. So, but again, I just hope like that the government, a lot of these businesses are closing down, and it's very unfortunate. But I'll tell you, Mark, normally businesses in times of crisis, they become creative. So I hope like the same thing is happening with the government. They know that we're in crisis situation, we need their leadership to do something, And I'm not saying that they have to pump in, give money out, but doing the really simple things like, if an investor come in here and want to do business, let's welcome them right away. Sit down, see what we can do to help them. And then when they go into a department and they get stuck because of misunderstanding of regulation, we want the director to be active in saying, Mr. Businessman, we like the business proposal you have, but you're not complying with the law. Let me show you how to comply. So we need to be a little bit more, extra assistance to the businessman, because especially if they're coming from outside, they don't know the islands. So for you to just sit in your department and say, no, that's we cannot approve that, anybody can say that, right? It's very easy. But if you say, we cannot approve the way you propose to us, but I think my staff can help you set up your business in such a way that it will comply with the law and comply with the regulation, and then you're going to be in business. But so that's the missing link, is we need to go out of our way to really help the potential business person. I think if we have that kind of mentality, a lot of companies will say, I like doing business in Saipan because they don't just give us the permit and then that's it. They come out and help out.
So we need a more welcoming atmosphere.
That's it, and more action-oriented. And, I'll give an example. If you have a kid and they have a delinquency problem. With the kid, you do everything you can, right, to correct that. Maybe you need to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and you tell them, boy, this is the wrong way, but I'm going to suggest to you this is the way, the right way, and follow that. So it's the same concept. In business, we want to go to places where we are welcome, and that if we do have a problem, that they don't just kick us out without telling us that, hey, this is the problem, we'll help you out, correct it.
So that's what you want for incoming businesses.
So more aggressive on the part of the government to be welcoming and be helpful. And so that way, I know, Mark, they don't need to spend money. It's free to be helpful.
Yes.
Right?
But what's your advice to current businesses who are suffering right now? What have you been doing?
For my business, we're operating, we're running the company as efficient as we can. And when I say efficient as we can, McDonald's, throughout the good times and bad times, we've really never laid off anybody. I take that very serious because people depend on the company. They go out and make commitments to the banks to buy a car, and I take that seriously. So, our message to employees is just do your job the best you can. And if you're the person that's always absent, always tardy, we normally give them an opportunity to improve. And if you don't, then basically you kind of like fire yourself. Because we cannot keep employees around that are not non-productive. They have to be productive, just like everybody else. And that's where the efficiency comes in. We don't just keep employees for the sake of keeping them. They gotta be a contributor to the success of the organization. So, right now, for example, we haven't laid off anybody. We do have a contingency plan to reduce, but we will probably reduce it based on attrition. So if somebody just quit, we're not going to replace them. So that's probably the first step that we're doing. And then the second step is if we need to continue to reduce, then we're just going to have to base it on performance,
What are your plans right now for McDonald's here on Saipan and in Guam?
On Saipan, actually, the last 5 years I wanted to expand, but now that the economy is not in good shape, I'm going to put that thing on hold for now. I want to see how things work out. On Guam, I'm continuing to expand there. Sometime later on this year, maybe around August, September, toward the end of the year, we will be groundbreaking another restaurant. So, Mark, just to let you know, on Guam, the restaurants on Guam used to be owned by the corporation, McDonald's Corporation in Chicago. And so for a number of years, I've been pursuing to buy them out. And they've been very reluctant because, it's a profitable operation at the time. And they used to have 9 stores. So when we finally agree in purchasing, them selling it to me, looking at all the financial situation, I decided to close 3 restaurants. Most of them are inside the base. And so the opportunity is a lot greater if they're outside. So that's what I'm doing right now. So when I purchased the restaurant, the first thing that I did was open the one in Zigo. Then the second now is Manila. So the third one will be, someplace in close to Camp Blas, the new military development. So I do plan to continue expanding in Guam for now. Once we maxed out probably on Guam over the next several years, my long-term vision really is to try and go to Micronesia, perhaps, Ponape and Palau, but that's going to be some time, because they also have their own challenge on their economy, and hopefully over the years, things will get better, and population, income level, and just the overall development of the islands is going to be there. So it's a waiting game.
If ever you're going to open a third location here on Saipan, where would it be?
Probably, I do actually have a drawing all set up, but we shelve it in the southern part of the island.
San Antonio.
Yeah, so around there, yeah.
But not right now because of the economy.
No, yeah. So, depends. What I want to do, though, in the Garapan area is try and see if I can build a freestanding restaurant.
Not just attached to the gas station.
Yeah. So I'm looking, I haven't finalized, but I hope that we'll have an opportunity. The challenge here in the Garapan area is a lot of the properties are very small. And so it's a big investment landmark on part of me to buy, 4 or 5 properties to put it together. Because I need at least a minimum of like 5,000 square meters to accommodate drive-through and, things like that. Although McDonald's is, working toward different sizes, like sizing for different communities, because we do operate in small communities like Saipan, and what fits the community. Yeah, but right now the mobile, I would say that it's getting smaller for our operation. Yeah.
Okay, you already said about tourism not really being reliable this past few years, and the military has still yet to really gain ground here in the CNMI.
Yeah.
What other industries can help the CNMI economy recover, do you think?
If you don't mind, I just want to make some comment on the military.
Okay.
As you know, when I joined CPA, I made a trip with the governor to the U.S., and part of the trip we visited the Pentagon, and we met a lot of the generals from the different parts of the military, from Air Force too. And so they are extremely happy that, the governor has indicated that they're welcome to the islands. Because, these guys, they really listen to the local community, if they're welcome and they're not welcome. And I think hearing that we're okay in them coming in, not everything is okay, but we have a welcoming. I think it's really positive for us, because I think the military now is, beginning to focus to do what they have to do out here, and part of that program on spending on what do you call the backup bases and things like that. Divert, yeah. So they're looking more into that. But my interest on that one. Part of my interest on that one is having like some kind of a ferry system for the Marianas, from here to Rota, to Tinian to Rota, Guam, and then back. And I wanted to see if the military can help establish that in the beginning, and once it's become successful, they can always turn it over to the civilian community or to the business to run it. But we need the SIP money to do that. That will really help the economies of our island and build better trust and good relationship with the military, with the local people, Another one that I was very interested is the deepening of the ports and developing of the ports. So the military are making some studies, I believe, at this moment to see what's needed. And of course, the same thing with the airport. So, the reason why that meeting was very successful, because after that, we had the Assistant Chief of Staff for the military coming out here visiting the islands. So a lot of important VIP from the top people in the military are taking a more, interest here. Mm-hmm. And I like that. I think, the benefits of them coming here will probably take, it's incremental. But I think over time, it's going to be good for us.
The past few years, there's been an idea that's being floated that the CNMI could be the next Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Well,
Are you looking at that better alternative?
Yeah. Well, again, when we talk about things like that, of course, I like to hear that, but we need to talk realistically. Can we actually do that? And I think maybe it's possible, but it's going to take a lot of investment. Now, speaking of investment, if somebody were to come from the mainland to develop that silicon thing, if they're not welcome, if they give them a runaround, they're going to go back.
So you're talking about, the permitting and everything. So are you in favor of abolishing zoning?
I was a two-time president of the Chamber of Commerce, and we do support the zoning. And I still, up to now, I support the zoning. And I think it's good for the islands because it provides some kind of an orderly.
There's structure.
Yes. The thing is that as far as the enforcement side, sometimes they enforce it in a kind of like really funny way. Because I'll give you an example. My building here, when you come in here, right, nobody tells me to have all those flowers and trees. But I know it's sort of like suggested to new business. Then when you look at the neighbor here,
there's no uniformity. Yeah.
And then so they require them to put flowers, but they just put it in the pot, and after 3 months it's gone. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh my goodness, no, I don't want the zoning to be too strict, but I mean, if it's part of the permit, they should say, hey, you commit to do this one, do it. Mm-hmm. No, and a lot of the blighted building on the island. It's funny because that's a conversation this morning. They're checking blighted abandoned building someplace far away from the main street, but here in the main street there's a problem. Yeah. I said, oh my goodness. And then when we checked, nobody has ever done anything. I said, so it's the focus. If I were them, if I'm the director, check first the main road.
Before looking at the site.
Before looking at San Vicente or in the jungle. So I think it's a management thing. They just have to kind of organize, what is priority and what is not priority. Okay.
Last question, sir. As one of the most successful businessmen that the CNMI has ever produced, what's your advice to prospective entrepreneurs here in the CNMI?
I would like to encourage them, but these are very difficult times. So if you're going to spend money, I would suggest you be very, very careful because you don't want to open and in 2 months, 3 months you close down. So be very careful. Make sure that you know your market that you're getting into. Start it. I'm a guy I always tell my staff, no, data doesn't lie to you. So don't make decision making based on what friends are telling you that, hey, open because I know it's popular. You gotta do your homework because if you don't, you're inviting to have a disastrous results on your business. So remember now, unless you have a lot of money, it's difficult to make money. So you have to be aware of that. And so you need to be prepared. My advice is if you do want to jump into the business, despite the economy, what's happening in the economy, make sure that you have resources to last you at least a year. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of companies, it takes some time to make money. So in the beginning, people are just testing you to see how well you can do the job. And once they have that confidence, then now you're creating a more permanent customers, right? But the 1 year period allows you to kind of experiment things, see you're doing good, what you're not doing good, and then you figure it out. And at the end of the day, you become more attractive, more more people know about your company and the services that you provide. So, yeah. But really, like, you know, I'm kind of saddened that we are in this situation. And believe me, like Mark, like, we just have to, from the government point, in the government, we really need to stop all those bad decision making. That's the problem. You know, a good example I'm going to tell you, on the spending side, we know the revenues are going down, but we continue to hire people. That's the problem. So it's almost like I'm trying to reduce, but tomorrow I hire 5 more. You know, I mean, the decision making is not consistent. And then another thing is, you know, people come to our islands to invest. Let's welcome them. You know, it's almost like inviting a new tourist. And I guess another thing like is, I think for the future, we need to stop talking about bringing in a lot of tourists. We need to be careful, because I'll tell you, my friend, the tourists that we're bringing in are your economy tourists. It's not that I don't like regular, but we need people that can come in and spend money here. Not come in and then go to get ramen and go to the beach and sit down and enjoy the environment. You know, I think we need for them to come in, enjoy the island, you know, spend some money on the island too, and then go enjoy yourself under the sun.
Okay.
So I guess I would suggest, like, the governor really needs to have a meeting with a lot of these departments on a regular basis. And I do this in my company. For example, let's say DEQ. Just an example. I would see the directors and the managers and say, what are the pending application in front of you? And if they say, you know, so and so and so, when did they submit it? 3 months ago. So I would look at the director and say, so what are you doing about this thing? You know, so more accountability.
More efficiency.
Yeah, that would create more efficiency. So that's one thing. And if I, for example, if I say, Joe, you're in charge of this department, and 3 months you have to decide, tell me if you can do the job or no, so I can get somebody else to do it. So that's the kind of mentality we need to do. A lot of these people, they're comfortable in their job, and maybe, hopefully, they show up to work. That's a problem, like, with these guys. So, you know, I just hope, like, that we improve in that area. Those, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. So it's the management. You gotta manage these guys.
Okay.
Because if you don't, man. So I think in many of the communities in the U.S., and you probably see in New York, example, the police department, they are notorious for overtime. So I don't know if somebody's watching that one. But you can really, you know, in my company, we don't allow overtime. If you're going to have an overtime, we want to know why. Why are you doing that? You have to justify it. So we just need to be a little bit more attentive to what we're doing, because it's not right that the taxpayers are paying you, and all you do is sit down and kind of like work 1 hour in 8 hours time. So more productive, I think. And you know, I may get into some flack on that one, but that's okay, because I need to, you know, sometimes we need to tell the truth. Yeah, because we cannot change if we don't know the wrong things we're doing. So I'm encouraging our government to take a look, and it takes the leadership to really provide a direction on this one. So you need to be accountable if you cannot do the job. But you know, so if I'm the governor, that's what I would do. Call in zoning and say, so what are you doing? You know, show me what's going on. Call in coastal resources calling public works. So a good example would be the road work. So how are we progressing? When is it supposed to be completed? If it's to be completed in December, you know, we're already in January. Why is it not? So you gotta like have accountability. Why did they didn't do that? There may be a good reason. I don't know, but you gotta have that accountability. You know, I'm sure, like in your job, Mark, you gotta be accountable to your employer, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's all about that.
Thanks.
Accountability, and you know, it's not to put you down, but to put an individual employee in the government down. But you gotta do a job. Gotta do your job. Okay. That's why you're there. Okay. You know. So a lot of this issue, I know, is deep rooted in government, and in, not only in the CNMI but even in the U.S. Deep rooted in terms of everybody's comfortable.
So in a way, businesses should take. Government should take a cue from businesses.
Yeah, and then you know the government it's business as usual.
But
so and the way they look at things is they're there to spend money, not not to save. So I'll give you an example. When I was at CPA, I know that we don't have the money. So when they say we're gonna have a meeting, example in Rota, it's going to cost 20,000 for the one-day meeting. I said, man, we don't have the money. We better take that money and change the air condition that we're suffering. So it's a lot of this decision making.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not saying that we don't want to have a meeting in Rota. It's that maybe once in a while if we have the money. Okay. You know, so.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for all your advice and your sage suggestions for the government.